Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Welcome to an exciting session where innovation meets healthcare. It's my honor to introduce our distinguished speaker, Dr. Khan Siddiqui. Dr. Siddiqui is a visionary leader at the intersection of healthcare and artificial intelligence. His remarkable journey began as a clinical radiologist and evolved into a pioneering force in AI technology. From his groundbreaking work at Microsoft, where he developed the first multimodal AI model for medical imaging, to his revolutionary role in creating
You got mute.
a company at the forefront of integrating AI with medical imaging, transforming patient care. Today, Dr. Siddiqui will share insights into his journey and the future of generative AI in healthcare. He aims to inspire you to think big, be bold, and create innovations
This thing stuff.
that can springboard your careers and contribute significantly to patient care. Without further ado, please join me in welcoming Dr. Khan Siddiqui.
So this was completely generated by AI, right? So as you can tell,
Assalamu alaikum,
I don't
everyone.
want you to start again. So we're going to talk about AI-driven healthcare and how we're innovating the future. And please throw in questions. Would love it to be an interactive session. And I'll try to leave some time for question and answers in the end. I'm on the board of multiple different companies. I founded different companies. So just my disclosure slide here. So the way I created this video was I first um, went to Midjourney, which is one of the program that generates AI, and I asked her to create an animated character for Zakaria Al-Razi, Ibn Zakaria Al-Razi, so that we can generate this image. So it came up with these, and then I modified the prompt to generate better, and I selected this one here, and then took this image and put it into DID and use ChatGPT to create the script that it said, right? So I did not type that script. ChatGPT created the script. So what I did was I copy pasted Dr. Humayun's email to me asking me to do the talk and told ChatGPT to create introductory message that an avatar would say and add it to the DID. And that was the video that you guys saw. So not a lot of time, you order this kind of stuff and this is what you get. But with this AI stuff, it's getting really, really, really better, and obviously it takes a lot of work to make sure it wasn't the first attempt that it generated that video. I had to do multiple different times, multiple different prompts, try different audio sounds to see which one actually worked to make it work. It wasn't just single click, everything worked. Took some time to do there. So I'm going to go start this talk in three different stages. One, talk about a little bit of my history, what I've done so far, then go into generative AI, and talk about what is happening in the industry, and then end in showing some things, works I'm doing right now in generative AI space, and do a demo of what I'm doing. So I went to medical school in Khan University in Karachi. After graduating, moved to the US, did my training at NYU and at Geisinger Health System as a radiologist, and then started at University of Maryland and the Veterans Administration at the same time, and built the United States' first imaging informatics training program. And my academic work here completely focused to machine learning. So this is around 2002 timeframe. From there, then I moved to Johns Hopkins, where I continued to focus mostly on machine learning and AI related work. And in 2007, I got recruited by Microsoft. So I left clinical practice, academia, and moved to Microsoft. And I'll talk about what I did over there. After I left Microsoft in 2012, I started a company called Higi, that is in hypertension management. And then after successfully exiting Higi, I started a company called Hyperfine, which is a portable MRI scanner. And then now I'm doing other things that I'll talk about in the next few slides. So now that I've done 6, 7 of these startups, I kind of have build a playbook on what does it take to become a successful entrepreneur. This is not only my observations, but a lot of my former employees and colleagues who've done their startups This is our joint assessment across, I think, 14 different CEOs who've done multiple companies and have had over a couple of $1 billion worth of exits. And what does it take to really be a successful entrepreneur and do it again and again and again? The first most important ingredient is the why. Like, why are you trying to do something, right? What is your inner why? Why do you want to go solve a problem? And why do you wake up and get excited about doing certain things, be it doing a job, starting a company, doing academics, whatever it is. You need to understand what is your internal motivation. And whatever company you're trying to do or product you're trying to build, if it doesn't align with your inner why, you will never be satisfied. So my inner why is I want to solve problems that somebody I love is affected by and create a social impact at the same time. So if those ingredients don't align, like I don't have somebody that is really dear to me and running through a problem that I can identify and can see if I can solve this and do it on a scale that can create a social impact, I don't get excited about those issues. There are tons of things you could do, but the things that somebody in my family or some friends or loved ones are affected by, that's where I focus on. The other most important ingredient is really understanding the problem. A lot of people jump to ideas first and then try to figure out how does it fit into the problem. My focus has always been to really understand the problem. Like I tell my teams is that we need to be better than understanding the problem than anybody else in the world. When we did higi, in the 8 years we ran that company, we did over 700 million blood pressure tests. Nobody in the world has done 700 million blood pressure tests. And that's the learning we had. So we understand blood pressure and hypertension better than anybody else out there. We know what impacts it, how it gets affected, how it gets treated by it. And that's how you're able to build a successful product that actually addresses those problems. Third ingredient is a combination of things. This is people, the people that you bring on board to help solve the problem with you, is the process, what processes you establish to make sure continuous innovation happens and people are result driven, and the culture that you build in of innovation, entrepreneurship, and to go beyond where nobody else has gone before. Fourth ingredient is obsession over user experience. No matter what you're building, if it's healthcare, at the end of the day, it's going to impact the patient. So this patient has to be always the first person you think of. Whenever, even if you're building a API or backend based solution, you need to think about how it's going to be used by the end user and how it's going to impact the patient care, especially if you're focusing on healthcare. You always have to think of building for scale. It is really, really hard to build a MVP, a prototype, then when you have not thought about scale, because trying to convert that and making into a scalable product becomes really, really hard to do, and that's where a lot of people start making mistakes and they're not able to grow exponentially. To build a company and grow exponentially, you have to think exponentially. And if you do not think of like that from day one, you're not going to build the right product and the right market. Lastly, for you to be successful, you have to have a great go to market strategy. You have to have what is called a product market fit. Without that, none of these other ingredients matter. So these are the six things that are important. And what you will notice here, it's not the idea. Who doesn't make a difference what the idea is. You can always pivot and change what you're trying to work on, how to solve the problem. It's all about the problem you're trying to solve. So the idea is never the key ingredient to a successful entrepreneurship. It's really obsession over these six things that makes it key for success. Another one is timing, right? Sometimes you have the idea, but the technology is not there yet, or something else is not there yet to make it successful. And as you go through this understanding the problem, you will understand certain problems you're not able to solve because of a lot of different factors that exist. Either the market is not ready, the payment structure is not established, technology doesn't exist to do what it is, and sometimes even it's better to just wait till those things catch up before you do it. So my first forte into machine learning really happened when I was at University of Maryland by building an automated computer detection system to detect knee injuries in on MRI scans. So this is one of the first products we had built. And again, we were academics, so we were building more from research purposes. This is 2004, 5, something like that time frame. Then I moved to Microsoft and really focused, really took the machine learning capabilities to the next level, doing organ-based detection, photorealistic 3D rendering from the cloud, and anatomy detection on video frames. Moved to Higi, where we build these devices to do blood pressure management, grew that to 11,000 locations in the US, 12,000 in North America, including Canada. And we had over 60 million patients on the platform, and more if I included Canada in it also. We sold this company to Babylon Healthcare. I then started a company called Hyperfine for this portable MRI scanners. The idea was to, patients have to go down to the basement to these large MR machines, and they can be daunting and difficult to use. But what about, in rural settings? What about inside, and even in a hospital in the ICU where the patients are hard to move? How do we build a device that can be driven to the patient's bedside? So this scanner can be taken to the patient's bedside and do imaging on. We have 4 or 5 of these in Pakistan, two in Khan, one in NICVD, one in JPMC, and one is in Lahore. Once we understood how to do blood pressure, one of the learnings was after doing 700 million blood pressure screenings, that is the morning blood pressure, the first reading is the most important. What started as a joke to, the blood pressure cuff needs to be attached to the toilet, so that when you get up in the morning and go to the bathroom, your blood pressure is done at the same time, actually ended up becoming a real thing. So we built this thing. The company is called Kasana Care. They just got FDA clearance, and this seat can do blood pressure, heart rate, EKG, SpO2, respiratory rate, other things, using a toilet seat. And it's we're releasing initially as a prescription only medical device, and then in a couple of years, once we've gotten everybody to trust the data coming from the seat, then we'll make a commercial version, a consumer version of it that we can buy and put it at home if needed. So that was our next thing that came out of this. The other thing that I started after doing Higi, really understanding what is needed for low income and elderly population is vision check, right? So total virtual ophthalmology using a kiosk-based approach. So we started this company called iCheck that I'm on the board of, where you can do retinal imaging, visual acuity, glaucoma, cornea assessment, everything except OCT on this device. And this is currently deployed in multiple states in the United States and expanding rapidly. Okay, I'm going to switch topics now and talk about generative AI and what is happening in this space, and see how, and talk about what is the future of this stuff happening. So first of all, you know, AI is a very big topic, and inside of AI, there's a concept called machine learning, where the machines, by looking at data, learn how to what are the important features in a particular thing that they're looking at, and generate optimize algorithms to be able to do detection or whatever task you need to do. And deep learning is a subset of that, and generative AI is a subset of deep learning, where you can um, where it's I'll go explain more what that actually means. So if you think about generative AI and pre-generative AI, there are two types of things that happens, right? In deep learning models, either can be discriminative, where you have two types of data. It has to classify as a type A or type B, or generative, where you ask me to generate new data that is similar to the data that it was trained on. And the example of this is in a generative technique, if you classify teach how to classify between, like for example, for a cat. So when you show an image of a cat, the model knows this is a cat. Whereas in a generative manner, what happens is you train the model with the same cat, but it actually generates a picture of cat when you ask it, what you're trying to do. So generative AI is more of generating new data rather than classifying existing stuff. You could have a combination of discriminative and generative layers, that do both classification and generation at the same time, and those kind of products you see coming out in different aspects of it also. So this can be in different ways, right? You in this scenario, for example, you're giving an image input, and the output could be text. Output could be generate a super resolution image or image completion, or it could be a video animation that can happen. Or you can take as input as text, which you see what ChatGPT does, for example, where the output could be translation, new text being generated, summarization of what text you've given, Q&A, corrections, or image generation, as the way DALI does, or the way Midjourney does, video generation as a Sora from OpenAI does. You can do text to speech the way I did with DID. I typed in the text from ChatGPT and it created audio with it. And then there are examples of where you can actually output could be the decisions and that can lead to playing games such as you've seen probably examples of Minecraft and things like that being played by generative AI models. And then the whole new concept of this generative AI agents is really decision makers, in which based on input text it can make a particular decision. So as I said, right, my first machine learning model was a simple classifier of CT images. This was published in 2003. So this is how early on I started working on machine learning model. This was when I was at University of Maryland. And then this led to the work that we did at Microsoft, recognizing human anatomy for different applications. So can anybody guess what this application ended up being? So this was Xbox Kinect. So this is the image classification task that we did to train the Xbox Kinect model to recognize the hands and feet and everything for gameplay. So that was the work that we did at Microsoft. Um, Ended up becoming part of Kinect. Other work we did
Something
at
that
Microsoft was, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
something that revolutionized the gaming industry.
Yep. So me and my
In
team did this work. Okay, so the other thing that we did at Microsoft was, again, this was published, I think, in 2011, the first multimodal concept of a model. So people talk about multimodal text and image now. We were doing this in 2011. So how many years before ChatGPT came out? A long, long, long time ago, right? So here, for example, the model understood what is in the text on the right lower quadrant and what is in the images. So if you as you're scrolling through the images, it will highlight the text on the right side, and you can click on different sections of the report on X-ray, and it'll take you to the exact image on the left. And the same thing, there were text labels here that automatically generated that you would hit on. It'll take you to the exact location of where, like for example, here I've clicked on right kidney and it's showing the center of the right kidney in all of these three quadrants, right? So this is another work that was done. This is called Project Inner Eye. So if you go to Microsoft site and search for Inner Eye project, this is that project that's still going and it's now used in oncology applications and radiation therapy applications. So this was started by us in 2009, I think, when we were in Microsoft. And then, deep learning also made Hyperfine possible. So this was a ultra low yield, low field MR scanner. The field strength of this magnet was only 64 millitesla, which is same as the refrigerator magnet. If you see a magnet attached to a refrigerator, that's what the field strength of this magnet is. So how do you generate an image with such a low field strength? And that's where we use deep learning based technique to do the stuff. So we used, instead of using fast Fourier transform, which most of the MR scanners use, we used a deep neural network that took the k-space data, which is in frequency domain, and generate the images using a deep neural net rather than using a FFT. So here was the example of that, right? So this is the input layer, which was a frequency domain information, and then there's a deep neural network behind it that generated the image from it. So we did both the deep learning for image reconstruction, but this is basically generative AI, right? Taking this and generating this. And then we also did classification discrimination, where we identified this input layer and an output, which was segmentation of the ventricles, for example, in this area to build the AI apps. So this was the classic discriminative model. This was the generative model that we were using. And what this allowed us to do is things like this. So this is the linear reconstruction using the conventional fast Fourier transform, and this is deep learning based reconstruction, much more sharper image than the left side and higher resolution. Generative AI is not new, right? So one of the first examples really was described in 1966. It was a program written but described by Joseph Weinsbaum, and then it was created and implemented by Norbert in 2005, in which there was a text-based input. You could ask Eliza some question; it'll respond to you in response. It had a limited vocabulary, but it could have a pretty interesting conversation with you on certain topics. It wasn't generalizable the way ChatGPT is now, but this is not a new concept. Ideas of doing this have been going on for a while. And image to text, text to images, sorry, has also been going on for a while. There were diffusion models of what that's really took this off. So, you've heard of DALI, which is OpenAI's product that generates images from text. So, for example, you can give a text of ancient Egyptian painting depicting an argument over whose turn is to take out trash, and that's the image that creates. Here's a Spider-Man from ancient Rome creating sculptures that look like that, and here's a Homer Simpson in the movie Psycho from 1960s. So these are all synthetic generated images. And if you look at this is one of the ones I've done. So and look at the detail now, how much detail and high quality these images are. And again, this is basically a completely generated image using the text prompt that I see hidden behind me here. So just look at how fast this has progressed, right? So this is a tweet by Ian Goodfellow in 2014. Using generalized adversarial networks, this is the kind of image quality we were getting on face generation. And it rapidly started to improve. And by 2018, 2019, looked very realistic. And 2023 was, you couldn't tell this was a totally synthetic artificial image, that there's no human that looks like, that exists like this. And if you look at today, here's today. This is completely synthetically generated human. This person does not exist. This was created by Midjourney in high resolution, and you can look at the detail of the hair, the beard, the wrinkles on the face, the glasses. It is unbelievably realistic. The focus on the eyes versus a defocusing of the nose and the ear. It is, the detail here is just unbelievable. Look at the shirt, look at the how the fabric is curving, stitches, and how parallel they are. It is just unbelievable amount of detail, and you can imagine how good this technology has become over time. Now, all the things I'm showing, just remember these were things that were built in 2023 and before, right? And all the things you're hearing about happening now in 2024, since January, we haven't seen products out in the market yet. So we'll get to that more in bit. But let me show you an example of how fast things are moving. So February 15, 2024, Google does this big announcement of a brand new large model, Gemini 1.5, that has a very large context. And Sundar Pichai himself came up and talked about it. And same day, OpenAI comes up with this idea of text to video model called Sora, and completely sideswiped Google, and they generated this. So based on the text below, you can generate this high quality video. Look at the waves, look at the detail on this wave. This is completely synthetically generated video. This does not exist anywhere, right? So the OpenAI on the same day, the day Google released their large model, released this and completely took over the news media cycles around this. Look at the mountains, look at the hills, the stones, the colors. Here's a depiction of a woman walking in downtown Tokyo at night after the rain. And again, this was just generated purely by text. Again, they only did video, right? So there's no audio in any of these videos. But then that didn't stop. The Lemon Labs, the company that from text creates text to audio, didn't want to be left behind. So on February 19, 4 days after OpenAI released their stuff, they released this. Hopefully this will play. Let me see if it plays. Come on, work. Play, play, play. Sorry, my video, this video is huge, so it's not playing for some reason. Okay, so basically what they did was they put audio on top of all the videos that OpenAI had released. Like in 4 days, they went from just video without sound to video with sound. And then February 27th, few days after that, Alibaba Group released their model in which can take any image and put any input audio, talking, speaking, or singing, and it'll generate a video. So what they did was they took the picture from the OpenAI Sora, screenshot of this female, and
Yeah,
generated
I
this.
think this is right now an inflection point where we're sort of, redefining how we interact with digital information.
So it's this photo and that audio combined generated this video on the right. And again, if you look at the
And
lips and how they're
it's
moving
through, the
and how
form of
she's
these AI
turning her face,
systems
it's
that we
all
collaborate with. And maybe
amazingly.
we have several of them, and maybe they all have different competences. And maybe we have a general one that kind of
So anyway, so this is how crazy this technology is. Again, these all things were built before 2023. They were just being shown now in February, right? And then what happened to the Gemini 1.5? Well, uh, unfortunately for them, they had a lot of problems where it started to become more racist. So like creating images that just did not make sense. I was completely wrong from a social ethical point of view, right? And they ended up had to put the Gemini 1.5 release on hold, and they backtracked the whole thing. So Google had a mishap on this. They've had multiple mishaps around that. But if you look at on image generation side of things, stable diffusion, which is the technology being used to generate these images, this is how fast developers start to adopt. So this is GitHub stars on stable diffusion versus all the others, Ethereum, Spark, Bitcoin, how they grew versus how fast stable diffusion adoption happened in the developer community. This is just in 90 days, right? That's how fast things are moving. Obviously, it didn't stop people in healthcare to see how we generate images. So this is one of the first papers came out earlier on where Stanford group tried to create X-rays using this for using stable diffusion to depict normal anatomy or things. And these are all completely wrong, right? This is not how chest X-rays look like. And these first attempts were really bad quality, very artificial looking images. But then NVIDIA decided to build this model called Monai, and it generated X-rays that look exactly how X-ray looks like, and was very good at generating these X-rays. They're totally fake X-rays, but they look, as a radiologist, to me, they look very, very real, but they are not of a patient. They're generated automatically. Here's a more practical application of generative AI, where orthopedic surgeons, what they do is when they're doing an implant, they print out x-rays, then takes models of the implant device, and then try to put it on top of the image to see, in this scenario, there's a hip replacement that needs to happen on the patient's right hip, and they're trying to see which is the right size of the more hip replacement that needs to be done. And there's an awesome application for generative AI where you can actually superimpose that particular artificial hip and show on the image how it would look like post surgery, and can create a lot of different examples of this stuff, right? So you can actually see, or the patient doctor can see it and see which is the right way to do this, and have the discussion with the patient, and patient can also see what exactly is happening in this scenario. So this image is completely digitally created, synthetically created. Here's the original patient with arthritis of the left hip, and here's the implant that is shown based on the model they selected. Move to the next slide. So people haven't stopped there, right? There's text to image, but the crazy stuff that is happening is this, where they're taking brain activity data while a patient is looking at an image, or humans looking at an image, and using that brain activity data to generate images. So instead of text input, they're using electric activity of the brain to do this. So, for example, this is the image that was shown to the human and the brain activity captured, and this is the image that was created using that brain activity after a lot of training. So these are all the ones that people were shown, and this is the images created by this. And this has gone even further, where people have taken fMRI, functional MRI signal, and try to do the same thing, where this is what the patient, the person is shown, and this is based on the fMRI data image that is created from the MR signal that is coming off from the brain. So this is where, hiding your thoughts and stuff may be a thing of the past in the future, where somebody can scan your brain as you're thinking about something and be able to create on what you're visualizing in your brain yourself. And then not only on the images, but people have tried to do videos also. So if you look at the person was shown the video on the left, and the right video is what was generated using the fMRI signal. Same thing in this. This was the image they were video they were shown, and this is the video that the fMRI created. And this is getting very, very close, right? That this type of fish looks very similar to what you were seeing. But again, this is all a year old stuff. Can't wait to see what comes out with all the latest stuff. Same thing people have done with music. You can do brain activity and generate music from what person is listening to. And a lot of people have done a lot of work in audio also. So we're going to rewind a little bit talking about image because, my interest in image, so I focused on that more first. Let's talk about ChatGPT. And I guess you must be under a rock, living under a rock for the last year and a half if you don't know what ChatGPT is. But ChatGPT is the fastest growing product in the market. If you look at how fast Instagram grew to 1 million users, Spotify did, ChatGPT did that in 5 days. Like if you look at how long it took Netflix to get to 1 million users compared to ChatGPT, right? If you look at all of these companies that are Facebook and all these and how famous they are, how long it took them to get to 1 million users and how long it took ChatGPT to get to 1 million users. There's some stats, I think these are from last year, these are probably old, there's a lot bigger now. That in August of last year, there were thought that 18% of Americans have used ChatGPT. I'm sure it's much, much, much higher number now. And when ChatGPT came out in November 2022, it was considered the AI's iPhone moment, where smartphone became the common thing. When iPhone came out, that's what people are thinking about. The ChatGPT is doing to AI. So if I so if you when in 2016, when RasNet beat the ImageNet competition and beat the human performance to detect objects, this is Jeffrey Hinton from UC Toronto. He claimed at that time that people should stop training radiologists now because image detection has been solved, and he was so wrong. And it's so amazing that if you talk to Fei Li, who ran that program at that time, then how misguided this statement was. I mean, Jeffrey Hinton tried to redo this again in 2023, where he said, if I was wrong, it's going to take another 10 years to do it. So in 2016, he said 10 years, but I think it's going to go much longer than that. I think we'll always need radiologists the way we always would need airline pilots flying using our autopilot type of scenario. So that's Jeffrey Hinton who made this comment around it. But why has this sudden acceleration in AI happened? So before this new way of doing AI, the transformer based models, all these different disciplines in AI, be it computer vision, speech recognition, robotics, image generation, speech, music, they all were using separate algorithms to do it. So in computer vision, SVMs, random forest was more common. In speech recognition, is long short-term memory type of stuff was happening. Robotics, a different thing. Even in healthcare, protein folding was a different model. So in computer science departments, you had all these different subdivisions that were working on different algorithms for their own specific task. So the incremental improvement that were happening are happening in multiple different algorithms. And in 2017, Google came out with this one paper in which before it was all on different algorithms, everybody consolidated towards one architecture called the transformer-based architecture. The T in GPT stands for transformer. And now suddenly every single department in a computer science academic place was working on the exact same architecture. So previously, where you have hundreds of researchers and postdocs working on on one algorithm, now you had 10,000, 100,000 of these researchers, postdocs, PhDs working on optimizing the same thing. And that paper was this: attention is all you need. It was published by Google's team. They themselves didn't realize how transformative this paper is going to be. This came out in 2017, and nobody actually paid attention to it for almost a year. And what this paper did a pretty good job at predicting the next word in a particular sentence, or next token is the most correct way to say that, that based on a previous context, what is the correct next word to include in a particular given sentence. And that's what ChatGPT does, right? Even though for us looks like it's amazingly fast, but it's predicting every single word in that chain of tokens that are coming back. And that was the architecture that and it has enabled a lot of these things. And people started to focus on and moving in this direction. So if you look at the timeline of how fast things have happened, AlexNet was the first neural net that was built and demonstrated on the ImageNet architecture. That was in 2012, and that was still below the human performance. It was RasNet in 2015 that really beat human performance for the first time. This was built by my team at Microsoft. I had already left. I left, but I'd seen the proposal when it was put in before I left in 2012. But so I won't claim on being part of the team when they built it, but it was the same team that built it. And then 2017 is when the Transformer paper comes out, and then GPT-1 comes in 2018. And here is how things have grown. So if you look at model parameters, and this is exponential scale, right? So it was 100 million parameters at GPT-1, and it's 1 trillion parameters at GPT-4, right? Actually, probably more than that. And if you look at computational teraflops available, this is how much GPU performance has gone up. So if you look at this is a slide I created in December 5, 2023. And the highest teraflop was 120,000 teraflops, and a 10 trillion token was I'm showing here. Just 3 months later is this slide. So this scale doesn't change, even though the Gemini is at 1.5 trillion model parameters. But look at the compute power that went up. So it went from 120,000 teraflops to 240,000 teraflops in just 3 months. That's how much compute increased and how fast things are moving. To give you an idea, all the things I've shown today to now were built on this GPU. It's A100 GPU by NVIDIA that came out in 2021. Everything that you see so far was built on that. In 2023, late 2023, H100 came out. So we've slowly started to see some of the work coming out, but we haven't really seen whatever I've shown you did not use any of the stuff. And this H100 is 11 times higher performance from compute point of view than A100. They announced, and we announced this year H200. Like just to tell you that Amazon in their infrastructure does not have H200 available. It'll be available in July to the first customers. So if you were building something on an Amazon's cloud, you would not have access to this H200. This is that new. And that is 18 times more performant than A100. And NVIDIA announced that in September, they're going to release the B100, which is the Blackwell GPU, which is supposed to be 40 times more performant than any of these previous ones. So just imagine next year, this time, you will be seeing products that were trained on this GPU and with the 40 times more performance, which is insane. And then because of what happened with the open source community releasing a lot of these models, there's just not so many models out there, open source, closed source type of thing. And with Llama and Meta releasing their Llama models and making them open source, this thing has become even bigger beyond 2023. I just don't have a slide to show how much more it has increased. But what has happened is because of models getting open source, the models themselves have no longer become the barrier because anybody can take any of the open source models and start deploying it. So here was an internal leak document from Google where they said they have no moat, and neither does OpenAI. Basically, all the models that are getting built are become commoditized. So it's really just whoever has access to GPUs and whoever has access to data is what is the moat nowadays. It's not the model itself. And if you see how fast things are improving, so here's the performance of GPT, right? Here's the BARD, which was the Google's model, came out before that. So Llama 13 billion came out, which was 68% performance of ChatGPT. Alpaca came out, 13 billion model came out. 2 weeks later, it improved the accuracy of the open source to 76. And then Vicuna came out 1 week after that and improved the performance almost same as BARD, right? So this happened after the open source LLMs came out by Meta, and how fast open source community, the Alpaca and Vicuna both are open source models, and how fast they've increased that. Well, another great news happened in December 1st, 2023 is that a brand new model architecture got introduced called state space model. This completely changed the idea of a transformer. So the transformer model has a quadratic equation that exponentially goes up with the amount of context coming in. So these researchers from Carnegie Mellon figured out how to do this without the quadratic equation and how to optimize the model selectively for hardware versus between GPU and the SRAM, how to optimize memory in the GPU to manage some of these things. And they published this paper on December 1st. It wasn't initially taken seriously by the conference people where they presented it, but when it came out, it was mind boggling. So, this algorithm is 40 times faster for training and 5 times faster for throughput than the transformer architecture, which is insane. So, you just heard that new GPUs are coming out that are 40 times faster, plus new algorithms are coming out that are 40 times faster. And we haven't seen those products yet in the market. So next year or year and a half is going to be insane. So whatever anybody is trying to build today, don't think about build based on existing feature technologies available. Think about how it'll be built a year from now, where you'll have this exponential increase in efficiency both in GPU as well as in algorithms. So anyway, switching back to medicine, there's a lot of work happening to bring these models into medicine. The big contenders really are the Google, Microsoft doing it. Here was a paper from the Microsoft team in partnership with Harvard University faculty. They talked about this building a multimodal model for image for medicine. Um, so Microsoft came out with this one last year in June, enhancing radiology AI reports using these models. Mm, and So it was kind of okay. There were a lot of goofiness in these. Some sentences were correct, some were incorrect. But they were trying to figure out how to do reporting automatically using chest X-rays. And then another one came out from Google called Elixir that tried to do more of a Q&A on these images. This also came out in 2023. And then Google released their MedPalm M model this year. I think MedPalm 2 now, that combines a lot of different data to generate different things, doing medical Q&A, doing image classification, report summarization, things like that. And then recently, Microsoft came out with their Red Dino paper, in which it is doing not only image report generation, but also identifying where the findings are in a particular image. So it's doing actually multiple tasks. It's actually looking at error in reports, drafting a report, disease process, assessment and quantification, and multiple things around that. Um, and then the report quality has gone up, but still there are a lot of different things that are not correct in this scenario. So anyway, I'm going to skip a few slides here just to get to this point. So what I'm doing now with the company that we've started called HOPPR is really build this multimodal foundation model the way Google and Microsoft has done, but trained on a very large amount of medical image data. What Google and Microsoft are doing is taking the existing Gemini model and Microsoft using the OpenAI's model and building on top of that. What we are doing is we are building a vision transformer completely from scratch from medical imaging data, not using one of those models, and then training it to do similar things what you just showed, but in a much more higher quality way. And the use cases we're trying to really solve are disrupting everything, right? From quality assurance to rapid access to findings to clinical teams to doing proper billing and coding to expanding pharmaceutical research and multiple different things. So the way we are training this model is we're taking images from actual radiology data with contracts we have with health systems in the United States. We are running this through and creating this self-supervised image transformer. And then we're taking the data from the electronic health record and radiology reports, and then doing contrastive learning to train these models to understand what's in the image. So I think what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop here and do a small little demo to show you guys what this is. I think I'm probably going to go over time here, but just bear with me. Just give me a second. Okay. Let's share again. Share window go. Share bit sound. Okay, can you guys see my screen?
Yeah, we can see your screen.
Okay, awesome. So this is an open source viewer, and what we've done is enabled our API for HOPPR behind the scenes. So when this image opens up, what is happening is the image is going through our API and converting into embeddings, and then from these embeddings, then we can now have a text-based conversation. So it's a multimodal text to image. So this patient has, here's a prior scan. So if you look at this here, this is all fluid in the patient's left lung. So this is the left side of the chest. That's the right side of the chest. And then what they did was this was done on June 16. On June 25th, they put a catheter in, which you can see right here, and has drained most of the fluid, a little bit left here. So I can do this, have the same conversation with a co-pilot type of experience. So the audio here is OpenAI, that's not us, but the behind the scene intelligence is all HOPPR. What are the main findings in this study?
The primary findings include the presence of a left approach pigtail catheter and a small left pleural effusion, with blunting of the left costovertebral angle and adjacent streaky densities that may suggest scarring or atelectasis. The cardiomediastinum appears unremarkable, and the osseous structures are intact.
And I can also ask it to compare to previous one, right? So I can ask questions like this. Has the pleural effusion increased since the prior study?
No, the pleural effusion has actually decreased in size from the previous study. The earlier report described a moderate pleural effusion, whereas the current study indicates a small pleural
So
effusion.
it is able to understand the differences between the two and do the stuff. And then because what we've done is we've also merged it with a knowledge model that we fine-tuned for radiology clinical knowledge. You can ask more clinical information. So I can ask things like, a patient is showing 103 degrees temperature. What is the most appropriate next imaging study I should do to further evaluate?
If the patient has a high fever and a known pleural effusion, you might consider a chest CT scan to further evaluate the pleural space, including the characterization of the effusion and to assess for possible complications such as empyema. Additionally, if there are concerns for an underlying lung abscess or other parenchymal lung pathology, a CT scan could provide more detailed information. Clinical correlation and consideration of the patient's overall clinical picture are important in deciding further imaging.
So, for fun, because because we're using existing language models that are very good at translation and things like that, I can do things like this. Assalamu alaikum, Eva. इस पेशेंट के फेफड़े में क्या खराबी है? Hopefully I didn't crash it.
इस पेशेंट के पैबरे में बाएं प्लवरल एफ्यूजन मौजूद है, जिसे फॉलोअप स्टडी में कम तो वजाहत होती दिखाई दी है, लेकिन अब भी मौजूद है। इसके अलावा बाएं कास्ट वर्टिब्रल एंगल की ब्लेंटिंग और इससे मुत्तसिल स्ट्रेकी डेंसिटीज हैं, जो स्कारिंग या एटलेक्टिसिस से मुताबिकत रखती हैं।